Hi, my name is Jasa Wickers, and this is my media clip final project. Question number 1. Define least restrictive environment and discuss this concept as it relates to models of delivery for special services. Okay, so the definition of least restrictive environment is, according to federal special education laws, the educational placement for students with disabilities that is as close to the general education classroom as feasible. So, every one of your students, not only your students with special services, but every single student in your classroom should feel safe, loved, and comfortable, because if they do not, then they will be unfocused and they will not be able to listen or learn anything that you are trying to teach them. So what teachers can do to make their students feel safe, loved, and comfortable in their classroom is they can create a calm corner. So this is really good for students it's good for any student. All of these 6 things that you can do as a teacher will be great for every student, but especially students with special needs or students that have a disability. So if you have an autistic child in your classroom and they are getting overwhelmed, you can have them go to the Calm Corner. So a Calm Corner is a designated area in your classroom where students can go to relax, calm down, and just decompress, especially if they are overwhelmed or they feel overworked or they just need to take a break because they can't handle what is happening. I know that children with autism, sometimes they have sensory needs or sensory issues. And so in your Calm Corner, you can have brushing in there, you can have fidgets in there, you can have weighted blankets, things like that, that they can use. Or I know like deep breath charts, they have to follow their finger up a hill and take a deep breath and then back down to blow it out, things like that, that can help them calm down. And then having a classroom rug, this is good because it just makes students feel comfortable because they have a place to go and sit and listen to you during a read aloud or a whole group instruction. And then daily affirmations. I know a lot of teachers do this, but just having like a daily saying that you and your students can all say together. It could be something like, today's going to be a great day. We're going to have a good attitude. We're going to learn lots. We're going to focus, things like that. Or it could be, I am going to have a great day. I'm going to focus. I'm going to learn a lot. Things like that you can have your students say in the morning. And then having one-on-one meetings with students or daily check-ins. This is great for your students who have special services or behaviors, because my internship teacher, she does this. She has two behavior students that need to have this one-on-one meeting, because without it, she would not be able to tell where they are at or where they are feeling. So one of her little boys, she meets with him every morning. And she asks how he's feeling, if he had a good morning. If he did not have a good morning, then she knows that he might need to go to the Calm Corner a couple times that day to relax because he hasn't had the best morning. And so he could be just a little on edge or a little upset already. So she knows that if he is starting to get a little agitated, she can be like, hey, I think you can go back to the Calm Corner, take a break, and refocus. And then having flexible seating is great for every student, especially students with ADHD or sensory issues, because if you just have your students sit in a hard wooden chair all day long or a hard metal chair, they're not going to be able to learn. They're not going to be comfortable. And it's just not, I don't like sitting in my chair all day. So I like to have a cushion on my chair, or even have like the wobbly chairs. That's good for students with ADHD because they can move and it helps them focus, and it's not very distracting to other students in the class, especially if every student is offered flexible seating. And then setting up for your students' academic needs. Your students will know if you are accommodating for them and making modifications. Your students will appreciate you and they will respect you for helping them out and making them learn. Like you are helping them to their needs. I don't know if that really makes sense what I'm trying to say, but if you just accommodate for their needs, and that just shows them that you are wanting them to succeed academically. So moving on to question number 2, why is the assessment process described as a cycle and what are the components of the special education assessment process? So the reason why it is a big cycle is because these 3 steps have to be repeated constantly. Always, every single time that you monitor them, you have to go back and gather more information and then observe. So I'll explain the process. So step 1, you gather information. So you gather information about data on their current skills and your students' current abilities. So say you are gathering information on your students' current reading abilities. So you're going to gather that information, write it down, and then you are going to plan interventions on what you can do to help them get better and increase their reading ability. And then step 3, you're going to monitor the success of those interventions. And so during this step, that is when you record more data and be like, okay, this is their progress, or no, they might have decreased or increased in their reading abilities. And then, so after you have done all those 3 steps, you just continue that cycle over and over again. So the next 4, I'm going to talk about 4 phases, which are the 4 components of the special education process, but this will kind of explain more of the cycle, and we'll go back to the cycle as well at the end of this. So phase 1 is when teachers identify and refer students to be assessed for special services. So this is when screening and teacher identification happens. And then phase 2 is the determination of eligibility. In phase 1, you also have to notify parents of the referral. In phase 1, you do not. This is just when you notify them. So moving on to phase 2 is when you determine the eligibility. So this is when you design the individualized assessment plan. And this is also when you need parental permission before the assessment. So you have to have the parents perform the IAP, which is the individualized assessment plan. So you have not assessed the student yet until you show the parents the IAP and they have given their permission for you to assess their child. So phase 3 is when the program planning and the design of the IEP occurs. And then, so going back again in phase 2, if the child is eligible for special services, then this is when you, the teacher, creates the IEP plan. But if they are not eligible, then they do not move on to phase 3. So moving on to phase 3, the child is eligible for special services. So the teacher and the IEP team, they create and design the IEP, which is what the student's goals and interventions will be. And then you also need the parental agreement again for the IEP. So you need parental's agreement and permission for the IAP, so just to assess their student. And then you also have to get approval for the IEP. So you cannot start giving the interventions services to their child until they have given permission, because if you do that, then it is illegal. Some parents do not approve their child to be on an IEP, which is sad, but it is what it is. So some parents do not allow that, and so then you cannot move further into that. There can be further interventions placed, but they cannot receive special services because that is illegal. So then after you get the parental agreement, then phase 4, this is when you implement the IEP goals and interventions. So implement IEP, and then going back to the cycle process, this is when you gather information about their ability, then you place these interventions, and then you monitor their success. So during the annual review of the IEP, this is when you will show the data and information that you have collected about the student's success. So this is also when you determine if the student needs more interventions or if they can move on to the next step or to further interventions to increase their goals. So number Question number 3, describe at least 5 strategies a professional can use to encourage family participation in the special education assessment process. So step 1, you can learn more about their family culture and background. So some families have different beliefs, different religions, things like that, and also different languages. So if a parent and family speaks a different language, their first language is not English, then you have to provide a translator, and all of the documents and paperwork will be in their first language, not English, or not your first language, depending on what your first language is as well. But learning more about family background, that just makes them like know, oh wow, this teacher really cares about my child and our religion and our background and our culture. So step 2, or another thing, or another strategy, you can share information. So clearly and caringly share them information about school, what's going on in the school, what's happening in the community that you can participate in or that they can participate in. And then also share positives. Parents love to hear positives about what their child is doing. If you share that they had an amazing day or they just did so wonderful reading this book to me, then that is a positive, and parents love to hear good things about their students, especially if it's a behavior student and they don't hear many positives. They're going to love that positive that you've shared with them. So number 3, communication is key. This one should be number 1 because communication goes through all of these, honestly. Communication is about it's involved in every strategy that you should use. So you need to be efficient and effective when communicating, and then you communicate verbally, but also non-verbally as well. So if you are not listening to them, they're going to pick up on that, and that is not going to build any trust. So moving on to number 4, non-judgmental attitude. So if you are judging them, or if you are giving them attitude, then that is not building trust, and they're not going to want to share information about their child with you, and they will not trust you to help their child with their academic success. So if you build that trust, then parents will share more important information about their child that could be very beneficial to you. And then 5, empathy. Some parents, it is difficult for parents to understand and deal with their children sometimes that have disabilities. And I feel like a lot of teachers don't always realize that. So just being there emotionally and for them, like being a support for them emotionally and cognitively, then that will mean so much to them as well, because they know that you are there for them and for their child, because you all want what is best for their child. The 4th and last question, compare and contrast 3 types of derived scores: percentile ranks, standard scores, and Stanines. Tell how these scores are related to one another and the normal distribution. So percentile ranks, that is, sorry, I need to pull up my notes. So percentile ranks is a score that translates student test performance into the percentage of the norm group that performed as well as or poorer than the student on the same tests. And then standard scores is just a derived score with a set mean and standard deviation. So an example is an IQ score, a T-score, or a scaled score. And then a Stanine is a derived score equivalent to a range of standard scores, which a Stanine is divided into 9 ranges. It is distributed with 9 ranges, which I have an example on the PowerPoint right under, and it talks about, or it describes normal distribution and compares Stanine and percentile ranks. So you can see the Stanine has 9 different distribution, or is distributed over in 9 different ways. And so an average Stanine score is 4, 5, and 6 on this chart. And then an average percentile rank is 23 to 39, 40 to 59, and 60 to 76. So those are the averages of that. So that is percentile, standard scores, and Stanines compared in that graph there. So that is the end of my project. Thank you, and I hope you have happy holidays. Thank you.